What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Mic Check podcast, brought to you by Around the Block Sports Network. As always, got a quick little episode for you guys today. Happy Friday, Sam. How you doing, buddy?
Doing great. Excited to be in an afternoon show with you.
I know, right? It's kind of weird, isn't it?
It's
Just
actually
kind of
early.
like I know it's pretty early, to be honest. I mean, not quite at the noon part yet, but hey, I mean, anytime is a good time to talk hockey. So.
No doubt.
Yeah, let's get into it, though. We only got a couple segments for you guys today. We're going to go over some power rankings for cup contenders, which is really interesting because you and I have been talking about it behind the scenes, and I think ours are pretty different, which is great. So that's going to be a good conversation to have. But on top, following that, we'll do some trade deadline rumors, just kind of, thoughts of players and where they're rumored to go to. Do we agree with it? Is it a good fit? We got some really good ones to talk about. So without further doubt, let's get right into it. We got the power rankings for cup contenders. Who makes our top five? And I believe, Sam, you're going to go first on this one.
Sure. I'll start us off. At number 5, I have Colorado. I think, obviously, last year they won the cup, and they're coming to this year. They haven't been the best as a team that we thought they'd be. They haven't been all that good. But, coming into, I think, come playoff time, maybe they'll get a little healthier. Maybe their defenders round out a little bit. Should be fine. I think they're definitely a team to look out for. 4, I have Dallas. I think Dallas at this point is pretty much a team without any flaws, and they have a goaltender that they could ride all the way to a cup, like sort of what they did in the bubble year. They could do that again without a doubt with Jake Ottinger. And of course, they don't have to rely on Ben and Sagan anymore. They can rely on Rupe Hintz and Robertson for offense, which is outstanding. 3, I have Boston. What's more to say about Boston? They've been the best team entirely this year. They've been just absolutely outstanding. No one's been able to get a good beat on them. And I think obviously they have the experience. Obviously they have the pedigree, but they haven't really made the true cup with this team. So I do wonder if come playoff time, their flaws start to show a little more than they're doing now. 2, I have Tampa. Tampa's all about the playoffs. We know this every single year. They're not a team that's really even trying in the regular season. They're still dominant. They're all about the cup. We saw them last year. I thought they were cooked in the first or second round. They made it all the way to the final with a team that was depleted. They know what they're doing. They should be a threat every year. And last, I have Carolina. I think, one, they're talented. They've been on an absolute tear recently. And then I think the most important thing is that they're hungry, right? All these guys have been shut out of the playoffs in years past. They've got early exits. I think now with Brent Burns on that team, he's another guy that's hungry for a cup late in his career. I think they're the team to look out for most come playoff time.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this list, I think some teams are definitely, should be in your top five, and some other ones I'm not going to give credit to yet. We'll get to it a little bit. I'll just give you a question real quick. I mean, Boston at 3?
Boston
Not 1, though?
I always am wary about teams that are dominant in the regular season.
As I feel like everybody would be throughout any major league sport. Typically that's what it comes down to is like, the number one team, they hold, they have, everybody else they play against, they just be like, we got nothing to lose. This is the number one team.
And I think they lose a lot of their energy in the regular season. We saw it 2019 with Tampa, 62 wins, lost in the first round, swept. We saw 20 last year with the Panthers, who were absolutely sensational regular season and hit a wall in the playoffs. So that worries me if I'm Boston, especially with an older team. I don't think they might not have the legs to last all 4 rounds.
Yeah, I can kind of see that, I guess. Maybe a little bit. Not really, but okay, so one team I'll mention that's not on my list, Colorado. They are not in my top 5. I mean, yes, we can just put in, hey, they won the cup last year, but
Yeah,
they're just right now they're just not in a good position. And for me, I think at the end of the day, they need everything to go right once if they get into the playoffs and once they start going forward. I believe they're in the playoff spot right now.
there.
They are, right? The wild card.
Yeah, I think I can double check that right now.
Yeah, I think they're a wild card going into the All Star break. So I I think they'll make the playoffs because I don't really think there is much competition for that wild card spot, at least for their caliber of their team. I don't think they'll crack their division, but I think they will be a wild card team at the end of the season. I just don't. I don't know. I feel like only certain teams are able to make a back-to-back run and have that consistency, and I just don't see Colorado being that team this year. I think they're definitely in the conversation for maybe top 10, but I wouldn't personally put them in the top 5 right now.
Well, I think makes a good point. I think the loss of Kadri definitely hurts them, and it's showing.
Yeah,
I think also Landeskog hasn't played at all this year, and I think
yeah.
that's a huge thing. If he comes back March like he's supposed to, they'll have a boost for the playoffs, and I think that's going to make a huge difference.
The Nikita
Also, keep
Kucherov special, right?
PIR cheese exactly.
I know. It's crazy.
We know it. Well, anyway, I think it shows that they're built for the playoffs. I think they know they're built for the playoffs. And so I definitely think any team's going to be scared to play them. So I
Yeah.
don't think they should be counted out at all.
Gotcha. Well, I guess I'll get into my picks here, and we'll just kind of go back and forth between your picks and my picks. Um, yeah. So honestly, I don't. Two of these teams in your top 5, I don't even have, and I'll show you now.
All right.
I got Boston 1, Tampa 2, Dallas 3, New Jersey 4, and Winnipeg 5. And I'll tell you why. I mean, right now, I'll start from the bottom. Winnipeg, they're my team where it's like, okay, they are expected to be positioned well when starting the playoffs. Then it just comes down to can they get through each of their series, each of their matchups. And right now, the way they've been playing through the regular season, they've been struggling as of late. But I think most teams go through that. Most good teams go through that. They'll have like a bad like couple week span. But I just love how this team is paired out. I love how much skill they have on this team. And for me personally, I feel like this has been a long time coming in the sense of they've been at that mid pack for years now, years and years and years. And I honestly think the reason why I'm putting them there now, I think there will be some trades that come to Winnipeg in the near future, and I think it's going to benefit them and improve their team going forward. One of those trade rumors we'll be talking about a little bit later. But I just like the way this team is fit. They have one of the best goaltenders this season. Going forward in Hellebuck. And I think he's just been around for quite some time where he understands the assignment now. He's been in the big games before. He knows what he has to do going forward. And then I just love their leadership too. You got some older guys that are kind of like your point with Carolina. They're thirsty. They're hungry. They want to go out and dominate. If I'm going to throw a team that I think is thirsty and dominant, that's been around for a while, it's going to be Winnipeg over Carolina for me. I just think that, everybody circles Carolina each and every season as, oh, they're going to go to the cup. I think on every statistic right now, they are the favorite right now to win the cup, maybe outside of Boston. But I just don't see the reason why I don't pick Carolina is they go out and sign guys, but they're not guys who've really won cups. They're
Mhm.
guys that are just continue to be hungry. They don't have that natural, that trade or that acquisition of a player who's won a cup before. And to me, I think it's so important. If you're trying to go out and win cups, you need to have Stanley Cup winning players on your team. You need to have the same thing in your coaches, your staff. You need that type of culture to ultimately get to a championship. Now, if you're just trying to make a playoffs, it's completely different. So I think Winnipeg will be making a move relatively soon. I definitely think they have the potential to make a run this year, especially being out in the Western Conference. So going into 4 here, I got the New Jersey Devils. This is my wild card because I this can go many ways. It's a young team. We don't know what they're going to be like when it comes to playoff time. But I just think the success that they've had this year, it almost be insulting for me not to put them in this conversation. Just the amount of skill they have, the different types of players they have too. I mean, some players are just absolutely pure skill. Some of them is all speed. Some of them is just raw grittiness. If you can mention like a guy like Tatar, Jack Hughes is just such a wonderful player. He's taken a massive step this year, and I love their coaching staff too. I think they're a team that should be at least recommended to be in the top 5. And right now, I can't pull them out just because of where they are in the NHL right now, what type of season they're having. Going forward, though, we got Dallas. I think they are a team on the rise. We saw what they did last year. I think, like you said, you have them listed up there as well. I just think they're one of those teams that, to me, it's really going to be Dallas, Winnipeg, and probably either Edmonton or Colorado from the Western Conference that I think really have a shot at it. But if I had to pick the top 2, it's going to be Dallas and Winnipeg for me. So I'll throw Dallas out there. Tampa, we know their story. I mean, they have been so dominant in the NHL for years. They get lucky when having, their awesome little Nikita Kucherov deals come in and play out for them. And they've been successful. They have Stanley Cup winning talent on that team. So that's why I'm throwing them at 2. Yeah, they may not look the most dominant from the conference right now, but like you said, when it comes to playoff time, it's a completely different animal. They've been there before. They have an awesome goaltender, and that's all you need to have a shot at making it to the Cup final. Then we go to Boston. They're the best team in the NHL right now. I can't just be like, okay, I'm going to throw them under the bus and be like, you don't deserve to be number 1, because everything they've done this season, yeah, they've been through a tough stretch as of recent, but at the end of the day, they have the experience, and they have also that guy who's about to retire, and Patrice Bergeron. I think they're going to do whatever they can to get him his last opportunity of winning a cup, which they tried to last year, but ultimately he came back. And I think, just they have the perfect balance between guys who've won cups on this team long ago. And I think they understand the assignment and knowing what it takes to get to a Stanley Cup. And I think ultimately, if this team gets to the Cup final, they will win. I just think they have too much grittiness. They have outstanding goaltending this year from Linus Allmark. He's been fabulous all season long, and I think he'll take another step when he reaches the playoffs. And I like the defense too. A guy like Charlie McAvoy leading at the helm there. Great player. This is a team that obviously at the beginning of the season I didn't think was going to do well, but they proved me wrong. So I'll have Boston at 1.
Yep. So the top 3 we're definitely aligned on. I don't see any argument against those 3. New Jersey is surprising to me.
Yeah, I know. That's the wild card. That's the wild factor right there. The thing is, it's kind of like Boston right now in the sense of I can't write them off based on what they've done so far. I totally understand that this is a team that has no experience in the playoffs as of recent, right? Last time they were in the playoffs, I believe it was with Taylor Hall, or I believe did they make the playoffs that year, or it was like the play-in tournament or something like that.
Oh, maybe.
I think it was the year Taylor Hall won MVP, if I'm correct.
2019, yeah, something like that.
I believe they made it, but they lost first round or something like that, or maybe it was close or something, whatever it was. But regardless, I think I just have to give them their credit just based off the season that they're having this year. I mean, my gosh, guys. I mean, you look at them and 49 games played, they have 68 points. They're overall 4th in the NHL. So that puts them right there. I mean, the 2 teams ahead of them are Toronto and Carolina. I already gave my spiel on Carolina. I just think they always bring in high talent, but not with cup knowledge. I think Toronto, on the other hand, they could be a team that potentially maybe gets by the first round this year. I just don't think that they still have that piece to put them over the hump. And I feel like this season, especially, some of their star players aren't at the top of the charts like we're used to seeing. That could be a good thing for the organization, but as of right now, I just don't trust them. And then right behind New Jersey is Dallas, and obviously I got them up there. And then to follow, we've got Tampa and Winnipeg. So I think if you were to eliminate the teams that I did, which is Carolina and Toronto, it's pretty much what we're going for right there. That's pretty much the outlook. New Jersey, though, I just think they're a young team, and I think if we were to see a younger team make strides in the playoffs and try and get to the cup, I think it's going to be New Jersey.
Yeah, I mean, New Jersey, they've had a tremendous regular season. They have all this talent, but I don't know if they have, obviously, the experience. I think these things take time. And I don't think they have the goaltending. Vanacek's been decent this year. I don't
Yeah,
think he's the kind of guy you can ride, but I think we'll see, come playoff time. I love
yeah.
the
Well,
because they have the ceiling of any team.
yeah, I'll give one more little stat line out there. New Jersey on the road this year, guys, 19-3-2. And that's what I think is
Good.
insane to look at because, I mean, what are the playoffs all about? You have to win in the opposing team's barn. And
Mhm.
if they are doing that in the I believe they lead the league in road wins this year. I'm almost certain about it. Let me double check.
Either
Um,
way, I mean, they've been as
yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, they have the most wins on the road this year at 19,
Wow.
and second is tied between Carolina and Boston at 17, right? So they only have three regulation losses on the road for this young team, which I think is outstanding.
Yeah.
Yes, goaltending could be a question, but hey, yeah, they may not have the best overall record at home, but once that crowd gets going,
Yeah.
you start playing well. You let the kids do what they got to do. Lindy Ruff, I think, is a hell of a coach. He's dealt with some younger teams in the playoffs before and has had success. I just think anytime you mention such a strong road record, you gotta like open up and give some respect to them.
hmm So yeah, you've convinced me they have a shot. Winnipeg, I'm interested in hearing your perspective because
Yeah. Okay.
obviously they have the goaltender. I think Hellebuck is the kind of goalie that can steal you a series, can be the best player in
Yeah.
any series. I've hammered this home with Winnipeg all year. They have too many one-way guys, whether that's too offensively or defensively. Not a lot of their guys play both ends of the ice. I think come playoff time, they're going to get exposed one way or the other.
Yeah. Okay. So if you were to realistically look at it, I believe in the I'll throw a different stat at it. It's more of the home team win percentages. At home, I believe from the Western Conference, they are the most winningest team at home with 18 wins. They have zero straight, or sorry, 8 losses in regulation, and they don't have any overtime wins at their barn. But I think defending home ice is huge, and I think that's part of just their style. Yeah, they may have a bunch of one-way players, but at the end of the day, I think they are a team that has been doing this dance for so long, and I think. Like I said, I'm going to mention a trade coming up here that I think would make a lot of sense, and I think has a good shot of it happening that could take them over the hump, regardless if they don't get that trade that I'm going to talk about. I think they will make some moves. And like you said, I think as long as they have a goaltender that can steal at least one series, I think this team has been in the playoffs long enough where they are able to, ultimately get over the hump and at least maybe make an attempt to get to the Stanley Cup. Whether it's, them facing off against Boston or maybe New Jersey, Tampa, that's a different story to come at the end of the day. But if I was to pick a team from the Western outside of Dallas, it's definitely going to be Winnipeg for me. I think this would be their time to do so. I think they've had so many years of them being mid pack in the playoffs that now I think they understand the assignment. It's time to go ahead and make our shot at becoming Stanley Cup champions. I think they have the potential to do it. I love their defense too. I love Morrissey. He's been an outstanding player this year. I know we've done a player profile on him too. I think he's an outstanding player. He's a player that can make an impact going forward. I got a feeling about Winnipeg.
I I'll see. I mean, I do hope that they get somewhere over the hump because they've had too much talent for too many years to
I
be
agree.
toiling
I
over
agree.
with a first-round exit. One thing I do want to mention that none of us did, none of us picked Toronto,
Yeah.
which is so surprising. I mean, they're third in the league right now.
Yeah, they are. Third in the league, outstanding season through 52 games, 70 points. To me, they're a team that's dominant at home. They're decent on the road. 11 wins. Not super impressive. That's where I think they're going to lose their first round series. I don't think they're going to be able to handle whatever team they go to. It's most likely going to be Tampa, and we all know based off of what happened last year how that went out. And I think they're just a team that, once again, I think they run into the powerhouse of the Eastern Conference, and they're just a team that's, yes, they're skillful in the regular season, but they're just never good enough to get over the hump. And I don't think they've made any acquisitions as of recent that just, surprises me and be like, oh, this is the piece they actually need. They've only added pieces that are like, oh, this could help, but it's not a directory. Yes, this is the piece they need going forward.
Yeah, I agree with you. They have all the flash and none of the grit that they need in the playoffs, and I think it shows itself every year, and they never seem to correct it, right? And that's partly a function of your superstars. I think Marner, Nylander, Matthews, all incredibly skilled, and you can win with those guys, but you need also guys to supplement their skill with some toughness. They have not shown the ability to do that, and come playoff time, they definitely get pushed around. They definitely get out physical, which is part of the game, right? You have to account for that. And I think they have the most important thing, which is skill. They're skilled. They're very, very good. But they have such a weakness. They have such a, I don't mean weakness in the sense of they're weaker than their opponent physically. I mean, they have a mental weakness that they can't seem to get over every year. And I really hope that, for Toronto's sake specifically, they figure it out and they make an addition that helps round out this team.
You got to think too. Like if they don't get past the first round again this year,
exactly,
major change. Oh, just major change. I don't even think that the clock is ticking at that point. I think it's literally just, guys, get ready. We're getting rid of a lot of people. They have to. They cannot continue. Basically, what they are is, and it's very controversial. I mean, it's basically Winnipeg, right? I mean, of the East, and even though I have Winnipeg up there, I honestly think that Winnipeg has a better shot than Toronto this year.
Have a better goaltender for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's going to come down to, none of us believe in them right now. I think they've shown 3 years in a row first round exit with this core.
Yeah.
They just have to prove it to us at this point. We're not going to buy any regular season results.
True. All right. Well, anything else on the Cup rankings, or you want to get into trade rumors?
Let's get into trade rumors.
Okay. You know what? I'll go first on this because, we were talking about Winnipeg, and I already, gave a spiel that I got a potential trade coming through. Obviously, this segment, lots of rumors out there on where certain players are going. And, we throw Patrick Kane out there because obviously he's another major piece out there, but I'm not going to talk about Patrick Kane. I'm going to talk about his teammate, another 3-time Stanley Cup champion, and that's Jonathan Toews, guys. I think he is the perfect fit to go to the Winnipeg Jets. I think this would be such a great trade for Toews and for Winnipeg. And I think if there's a deal that is perfect and to be made, I think Winnipeg would be able to do so. And, just looking at it, if you were to trade Jonathan Toews to the Winnipeg Jets, that means he's going to be your third line center. Beautiful. And this is exactly what you need for an organization that needs those pieces of players that have been to championships before, has been successful in championships, and bring, that type of culture to your locker room. And you have him as your third line center, and that's Jonathan Toews. He's also from Winnipeg, so it's a homecoming. This just makes way too much sense for me. I think they'd be able to work out a deal that's right to go back to Chicago. If you add Jonathan Toews to the Winnipeg Jets, that's the reason why I have him in the top 5 right then and there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It makes sense for both sides, especially Toews. He should come cheap for Winnipeg. He's from Winnipeg, as you mentioned. So I think he would definitely be on board with coming home and competing for a cup with this team if he's ever going to leave Chicago. I think it makes sense if they can get him cheap. And assuming Chicago retains half of that, so you're looking at, 5.75-ish?
Yeah.
5.25, sort of in that range of salary. Winnipeg, I think, will need to send something back, some cap, but they should be able to work that out. I think it makes a lot of sense if you can get him, second, third round pick.
If you were to look at their third line right now, you take out Adam Lowry and you put Jonathan Toews there, and then you have Blake Wheeler, and Cole Perfetti. I mean,
That's a good line.
that's a great third line. And Taves, yeah, I think he's like 34 right now. He can easily, once he gets back into the playoffs, turn into the player that he used to be. At least being on that third line. And you know what? That takes so much relief and stress off of guys like Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, Pierre-Luc Dubois. I mean, that I think would make so much sense. So right then and there, I think you have a wonderful um, top 12, honestly. Like just the most even top 12, I think, in the NHL. And then on top of that, yeah, it's going to come down to can your defense stand tall? But other than that, we mentioned they already have the goaltender that can win a series or two. So you do that, and then you add a 3-time Stanley Cup champion and a champion who wants to play for his hometown. Oh, sign me up.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. He'll bring the winning culture they're missing. He's won some cups in Chicago. He knows what it takes. I mean, if you trade back Adam Lowry, that probably gets you to the salary you need because that's 3.25, and then they have an extra 2 million. That gets you there. You get off Lowry's contract, and then you have a little bit of extra room next year actually to re-sign guys like Pierre-Luc Dubois, who's hitting restricted free agency. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Looking at it that way, if you don't give up too much draft capital, it works out.
Now, let me ask you this, though. If that trade did go through,
Mhm.
is Winnipeg in your top 5?
No. It doesn't move the needle that much for me.
For me, it does. Yeah.
Interesting. It definitely will help.
Yeah, it definitely will. If anything, all right, do you see, let me ask you this then. That happens, do they get to the conference final?
No, I think it's probably Dallas and
Colorado?
Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
And maybe Edmonton sneaking in there, but we'll see.
Only time will tell. So we'll get into you got some trades. So
yes.
let's get into your little profile here.
So we talked about Toronto and how they're always on the outside making the flashy splash edition, never quite getting the substance. Let's stick with that trend. Let's make a trade that Toronto would make. And I think a perfect guy for that would be John Klingberg, who is now signing a 1-year deal with Anaheim. He completely has not worked out this year, I think, in Anaheim, has not given them any sort of defensive presence, given them any sort of veteran leadership, nothing like that. So he's definitely on the move this year.
Yeah.
They give up the most goals per game, but he's a good offensive defenseman. And Toronto, I think, needs a D on the left side and a great guy for, I think, he's a big name. He'll draw some more crowds. Toronto loves these guys. Let's send John Klingberg, retains half the salary. You can give them maybe a late first, maybe an early second, that sort of range, and get a guy in there that brings some more fun and more talent to an already loaded offensive units.
Yeah, and I think Toronto needs to get bigger, and that's the best way to do it. And adding a 6'3", almost 200-pound defenseman in John Klingberg, and we've seen what he's been like in the past too. And yeah, he's shown a lot of capability of being a really good defenseman. And I think if you were to get him in to the Eastern Conference, I think it's more of an offensive conference, in my opinion. At least when it comes to playoff time, I think this would be just a really good position for him to end up in. I think Toronto would love it. I think they would have the right return going back to Anaheim. So I think at the end of the day, it would be a really good move for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. We'll see, because obviously Muzzin's on LTIR. They have some cap issues. So there's going to be some maneuvering that has to be done there. But I think it's possible with everything considered because it's only a 1-year deal. You assume Anaheim can retain half, so it's only $3 million you have to send out. You can make that work if you want to move TJ Brody, if you want to move on from Matt Murray and rely on Samsonov. That's another option. So I think it works. I think Toronto would love this guy for one, because he's got such offensive gifts and he does not help their grit or their defense at all. So I think it's perfect, and I totally see that being the case. I see that as a distinct possibility as another free agent splash for Dubas. I think it's just the kind of move they love.
I think it's the move that they also need to make. They definitely need to, just they need that type of energy going into the. I don't think they can stick with the same team. Is basically what I'm saying. Going into the playoffs, if they want to try and change something. yeah, I can't see them just sitting still. They're not capable of doing that this year.
They're not. They're not. And I do wonder if he brings a spark because he's a fun player. And I think maybe if the joy comes back, maybe that helps them.
Yeah.
Does it move the needle for you at all with them?
I think yeah, he would. Not I wouldn't say into top 5 still, just because I
Mhm.
think of the talent that there is in the NHL.
Yeah,
At least from the Eastern Conference, it's just so dominant. Um, man, I mean, literally, I can't. I wouldn't. To this day, I will not expect the Leafs to do anything until I see it.
no,
Like
you're right.
literally, it's just one of those. It's one of those circumstances where they have just been dreadful in the playoffs. And to me, the amazing thing is they always have great success to start off the series, and they're always up, and they just cannot finish. I think yeah, adding this type of piece would keep them in there, and maybe they'd be able to escape out of the first round. I still don't think they're cup contenders though.
You're right. Fair enough.
All right,
So
let's get into your other one. I know you got one more
this
here.
one I
So
am very excited about.
when I saw it, I was a little like, really?
So,
Okay. I
so
didn't even really think about it that much, but go ahead.
talking about Vladimir Tarasenko on the last year of his deal, $7.5 million. He is on a St. Louis Blues team that is internally collapsing.
Yeah.
They are
Oh, yeah.
going nowhere fast. It doesn't look very good. Yeah, I think he's a prime trade candidate, and I think the team that will use his services the best are the Edmonton Oilers. Now you're probably thinking more offense for Edmonton. Great. That's going to help them so much. But I think it will. And here's why. Because of all the defensive additions they've made, Nurse signing that deal and then getting Jack Campbell in the offseason, it hasn't worked, right? They're still giving up a ton of goals and they're still scoring a ton of goals. And at what point do they see this incredibly offensively talented winger in Vladimir Tarasenko and not just say, screw it, we're scoring 6 goals, try and outscore us? I think that's a distinct possibility. I think this is the kind of deal that Ken Holland finally gives up a first round pick for. I pray that he finally does because these 20th overall picks are not doing anything for them right now or in the immediate future. And the Connor McDavid clock, we said it before, 3 years left. It's time to get aggressive. It's time to start really trying things. I think Vladimir Tarasenko helps them out, especially with now Evander Kane out for the year, I think, or out for a long time at least.
Yeah.
I think it makes all the sense in the world to get another winger, give Connor McDavid a real running buddy, a true running buddy, not Zach Hyman or anyone like that. Someone that can really snipe the puck and give him the offensive weapon he hasn't had in many years.
Yeah, and you take a look at their lineup right now. I mean, you look at McDavid's line. Any player that plays with Connor McDavid is going to be great, but depending on where they want to put him in the lineup, if it's McDavid or Dreisaitl's line, I think Tarasenko would be just an immediate impact. I mean, obviously right now he's not having the best season. I mean, he's only got 29 points in 38 games. It's not terrible, but I think if you were to immediately add, them to one of those two lines, he's going to just produce so well. And kind of going back to what I've been saying is, yeah, he may have been on a team that won the Stanley Cup, and you'll be like, oh, well, that's kind of like luck of the draw that they won the Stanley Cup that year. But yeah, he's a Stanley Cup champion, and anytime you bring that type of player into an organization who's won a cup, I think that is way better value than the best free agent or the best trade profiled player on the market is getting somebody who's won a cup. And I think especially for a team like Edmonton, who is trying to get there, who has the best player in the NHL, possibly top two best players in the NHL right now.
Yeah.
Like seriously, you add that piece, I think it's going to be a great fit. And yeah, like you said, losing a guy like Evander Kane who is able to be a capitalized individual just because of those two centers. I think this guy has had such a great success in his NHL career of being that dominant winger and not necessarily having the best centers over his career. You put him in there, I think they're going to light the lamp all night long. I think it would be a tremendous move for the Oilers. And once again, kind of like Toronto, I think it's a move they need to make.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, this makes them a genuine cup contender because I don't think we've seen an offense like this in many years. I think you got to go back to the 96 type Penguins teams to see this
Yeah,
much talent with McDavid and now Tarasenko. So for me, I think that's their best shot because I don't see any defensemen that change anything, any goalies that change anything. But
yeah,
this guy being available, you got to pull the trigger. Obviously, the cap situation is going to make this a little complicated. You might have to send out some decent money, but I think there's a trade here to make that makes them significantly better as if they
yeah.
can let go of the
I,
pick.
I think it'd just be great for the NHL in general too. Like just
I
fans
will
hockey, just to watch that. Oh my gosh, would be insane. Now, do I still think that they are going to be, the team to come out of the West? I think they would have an opportunity. It's definitely gonna, in my opinion, still, it's definitely gonna have to come down to McDavid winning some series for them.
He's done it
Um,
before.
he's done it before, right? And I think adding this piece would definitely help them. We'll see what happens though going forward. I think that's a tremendous spot for him to end up in though for Vladimir Tarasenko, and I think it'd be a great fit.
I hope so.
Yeah. You got any other players just off the top of your head that would potentially be on the move or, a team, a guy that just would make an awesome impact anywhere? Because,
Brock
like,
Besser, someone take a chance on
yeah,
Besser.
yeah,
Please get him out of Vancouver.
I know. I feel like that guy deserves to go
He
somewhere.
deserves so much better.
I know. The only other ones I can think of, like off the top of my head. I mean, obviously Patrick Kane. We've talked about
Yes.
that in the past. As these trades start to happen, I mean, I feel like Patrick Kane will be a guy who goes at the deadline,
Yeah.
and I think that's kind of going to be. I don't know if I'm Chicago. I'm getting on the phone way earlier and getting a trade done with Taves and Kane before the deadline. I don't want to be just stuck saying, okay, I have to give him out now. It's one of those weird situations where, yeah, these guys are older and stuff, but they can still be very impactful. And at the end of the day, some of these teams that are at the top, I don't know are going to be necessarily buyers. Like I don't see Boston really going out there and trying to make a lot of moves out there
He'll be
because I
quiet.
think. I think they'll be very quiet, and I think they're able to be quiet too. And even if all these other teams start making trades, I still think they're going to be at the top to be at least a favorite to come out and win the cup.
Yeah, I think they have to save some money to resign Pasternak, who's going to get a huge boost in salary next year.
Yeah. I don't think they're going to be huge. I mean, if anything, they'll take a rental and they'll just be like, all right, this is the year we got to go and try and win a cup. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Then they'll let them walk and then re-sign their guys.
Maybe something like that.
Yeah. All right, guys. I think that's going to wrap up our show today. Thanks for tuning in. Always great to see and hear from you guys. But we will be back next Wednesday. I believe we will probably do some all-star coverage, that type of stuff, which is great. But other than that, dude, have a good weekend. And we'll see you guys next time here on the Mike Check Podcast.
Hey, guys.